I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're thrilled to announce that a fan favorite novel is now available in Spanish. It's written by a terrific author. His name is James Maiwurm. He's one of my favorite guests here on the show. And his acclaimed book, Legacy of Crisis and Dysfunction, is now published as Herencia de Crisis y Disfunción. Join us as we explore how this deeply personal yet globally relevant book is helping readers around the globe understand the dynamics of a divided political world. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put him once again in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. James, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome back, my friend.
I guess I should say, muchas gracias, mi amigo.
That's about the extent of my Spanish. I actually had to rehearse quite a bit to try to get your book title down. Hopefully I didn't butcher it too much.
Muy bien.
Muy bien. Yeah, I worked very hard trying to recall my lessons in high school in Spanish, but they did not sink in. But a lot of this world does indeed speak Spanish. So now this gives your book even greater reach. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to publish this in Spanish.
That's a good and fair question. When we wrote the book, we wanted to have flexibility with the book in terms of how it would be deployed and from a standpoint of dealing with the public. And, you know, if you look at the world as it exists today, you know, the Spanish-speaking world is a big chunk of our global population. And we really look at the book as having a focus on the United States, but it also deals throughout the book with vignettes having to do with particular states, particular geographies, different countries. And none of them are Spanish speaking, but we're trying to send the message that all of these various intertwining relationships are important to you know, what goes into history and what makes it into the future. And so we wanted that population to have something that they could turn to more easily. And if your Spanish is better than my English, that's a good thing for a book like this. But it really was part of the plan. And we you know, similarly, we thought we ought to have sort of exit ramps in the book that would allow you to exit for one purpose or another. You know, maybe a sequel, maybe something else. And so we wanted to keep it flexible from a language standpoint, but also flexible in terms of what goes in the book and what stays out of the book and what you use for different purposes. Yeah. So flexibility was the watchword, and you just have to, you can't ignore the Spanish language. I mean, you've got it in places where you don't really expect it, but all over, of course, Latin America, in the United States, and Spain, and the Spanish islands, and other places around the world where Spanish is a dominant language. So it was a natural. And we'll probably do some other languages as well.
Wonderful. I think the greater reach of this book, the better. It's often said America sneezes and the world catches a cold. So what happens here does affect Spanish-speaking nations globally and other nations as well, of course. I mean, look no further than what's happening right now with our markets, you know, our stock market. Obviously, that's going to have repercussions. So are the tariffs that have been imposed. What's your take on this latest chapter of what many would call dysfunction in America? Other people, of course, would cheer it on because we are a split nation, pretty much 50-50 too. What's your take on it, James?
Take on it is that you're right. I think you're exactly right. And the nation is split 50-50, although I think in terms of people being hurt by the existing dysfunction in our markets, is that's a big group of people, and I think it includes people who are on the right end of the spectrum. And so I think there is very few people who are happy about this in terms of a consequence, and I don't think it was fully anticipated. I think this is probably worse than what the government anticipated would happen. And so we're on, I think, the negative side of the scale, and I think people are scared to death. I can still remember when my mother and father were still alive, how when we had a drop like this in late '87, and they sold out of everything on the morning of that drop off. And of course, it was the worst thing you could do. But people are actively thinking about that every second of today.
Hmm.
And it's really a shame. And who knows what the right answer is? I mean, this could be fundamentally over or fundamentally not. And you're beginning to hear the R word, recession.
Yeah.
And once people start using the R word, it becomes more and more built into the vocabulary and in the expectations. So I think this is a pretty serious set of issues. You expect this to bounce back at some point, but there's a lot of stuff going on here because it's the financial combined with our political dysfunction in the United States, lack of confidence in whether or not the Fed can contain things. And what's the Fed going to do? They would seem to be headed toward a reduction in interest rates now, with inflation going back into the picture, with the various things that are going on in terms of governmental actions. Interest rates may flow up again, and may make the Fed change its mind about where it was headed. So there's a lot of stuff I think in play. It's like watching a European football game with an extra three players. It's really crazy.
Exactly. The good news is our president, President Trump, is extremely changeable, and he could
Yeah.
pull the plug on tariffs today, tomorrow, or at any time. So stay tuned,
And
folks, before you
he will
sell
use
that
it.
portfolio.
He will use it for making decisions. I mean, he will try to make lemonade out of lemons here,
Yeah.
and he's pretty good at it.
Exactly. Yeah, he's pulled quite a few rabbits out of his hat over the years, so we'll see what happens this time. It's interesting, though, your book actually deals with retirement, which is impacted, aging, which is impacted right now. And of course, like you said, people are grieving over looking at their portfolios that they saved their entire lives for and watching them dwindle, losing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases, on paper at least. There could be a rebound. We hope, we pray. Why is grief, retirement, and aging? Why are they central themes of your book?
Because a greater and greater portion of the population is in one or more of those categories.
Mhm.
What's happening, and this is not just a U.S. phenomenon, but around the world, the population on average is aging. And so that set of dynamics is something that affects a lot of different things. You go to, for example, shift over to Japan. Japan is a great country, a great industrial power, but it's like the United States. There's a sense in which the working population is growing smaller with the passage of time. The demographics, do not lie. They are what they are. They're a number, and you can tell that the Japanese, the Chinese, for that matter, the United States, many places in Europe have a working population that is shrinking,
Mhm.
and that's been something that's been a positive over time. So people could use some of this accumulated wealth to their benefit, and so I think it's got good news and bad news here, but it's mostly bad, and it's bad because there are so many people who are in this aging section. I'm one of them, unfortunately. In this aging sect of the population, which is going to be more worried about this than the younger folks who
Yeah,
have more time to recover.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
those people who are going to these rallies in the United States right now are that the Democrats are holding, even where Republicans are not holding these forums that they're having for voters. That those forums are, if you watch a couple of those, you can see that people of all political areas are really worried about this topic.
yeah. It's frightening. I mean, because we're all impacted, whether you're Democrat or Republican. If you have any stake in the game in America, if you have some savings in the stock market, and many of us are now because we're all invested in our 401ks and other retirement plans and so forth. It's a frightening time. Let's talk a little bit about salt, pepper. He's a retired diplomat, I believe, who's called out of retirement because the nation needs him. Talk to us about him as a protagonist and the qualities that he possesses that are helpful in his journey amid these international crises.
Person who is sort of personifies lots of different kinds of people in one package. And we use him as a vehicle to demonstrate, for example, as we were just talking about, how do people react to impending retirement? How do people react to financial, somebody sticking them in the back financially? How do people react to what's going on politically, domestically, and internationally? And so, Salt carries a lot of weight in the book, but there's a sense in which he's more than one person, because he sort of personifies lots of different things that are going on. He's thoughtful, and he becomes a sort of a voice for what I call in the book, the middle of the population. He's not somebody who's far to the left, far to the right. He believes in the middle. He believes in consolidation of talking about things. He believes in avoiding confrontation, and what he really wants to do is enjoy himself. But he's got this two problems. One is he's not used to being alone in a farm in the Blue Ridge Mountain area. He's not used to not having a spouse that he had a very good relationship with, and he's not used to dealing with going back into the Washington mud slinging area that exists around the State Department. So he's sort of everyman in a way, and we use him for wearing lots of different hats because he's a vehicle for communicating, for example, about farm issues. And so we talked in the book about what's happening with farmers and how their economic likelihood of success is really tied closely to things like what's going on right now, tariffs. And so the book is interesting in the sense that it is not outgrowing itself. It is not becoming old. It's becoming even more relevant maybe than it was before.
Yeah.
So if you were worried about the book becoming dry and decrepit in its old age, that's not happening, because what's going on in the world today is actually right in the middle lane of where this book is headed. And I was worried about that, but it turns out it's worked out very nicely.
Yeah, you were prescient in your vision for America and the political climate, no doubt, because it is still spot on and is very, very relevant, perhaps more relevant now than when it was first published even. Global reach is important to you, so I would think turning this into a film would be of importance to you as well, right, Jim?
Reach is on the table, and films are a big part of that. It's sort of interesting. You have to look at, and I'm no expert on this, but I'm learning. But you have to look at global reach and think about, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, or the book or the movie.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things you have to decide. And initially, I was thinking maybe the book ought to come first in terms of emphasis. But now I'm beginning to think that the movie, given what's going on in the world, the movie version, if we can get there, is something we ought to be pushing hard and fast.
That's great. Hollywood, if you're listening, this is a timely novel that is ready to be made. It is certainly a Capra-esque story, in my opinion, not unlike Meet John Doe, where Mr. Smith goes to Washington. That kind of feel in this novel. It's timeless, and it addresses very timely issues as well. The name of the book we've been talking about today is Legacy of Crisis and Dysfunction. It's now available in the Spanish language. It's published as Herencia de Crisis y Disfunción. It is an amazing book that tells the story of an American diplomat who is called back into service at a crucial time in America and in the world. James, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight. Appreciate your time, sir. Always great having you on the show. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.